Привет всем, с вами я, Janie, и это How Janie Learned Russian, and you can too. Today we are going to be talking about this concept of это and how it has kind of two purposes. It can be a little bit confusing, but don't you worry, I'll walk you through it. So today we are on day 9 of our unit based on my textbook, which is Russian Cases Made Slightly Less Scary. You can purchase that textbook over on Patreon. There's a link in the description box below. Also, we are currently offering group classes. They're going strong right now, and it's super fun. It's great to get over there. And then on Saturdays or on the weekend, throughout the week, practice what you've been learning in these videos. So I highly recommend that. You can attend as many lessons as you want just for a flat membership fee. And like I said, it's great. It's a great way to hold yourself accountable for everything that you're learning in these videos. So let's go ahead and review what we talked about in yesterday's video, which is this magical all-purpose word takoi. And it changes for gender. Takoi, takaya, takoya, takiye. Now remember at the end of yesterday's lesson, we practiced making insults. So that was kind of funny. Or compliments. And because the word takoi intensifies, it comes in very handy for insults and compliments. So let's practice some of these. I'll say it in English and you see if you would know how to say it in Russian. So, how would you ask somebody, why are you such an idiot? Not a nice thing to say, but I mean, you would hear it definitely. So, why are you such an idiot? The word for idiot, you can say idiot. You could also say durak, which means a fool. And I like that word more. So, почему? And then durak is masculine. Right? So, почему ты такой дурак? Почему ты такой дурак? Why are you such an idiot? How about this one? Janie is so weird. Oh my gosh, she is so weird. And now I'm feminine. So, our word for strange is странный, but we need to make it feminine. So, how would that sound to make the word so feminine as well as weird? Janie такая странная. Ну, блин, что с ней? Janie такая странная. Okay, how about this one? Y'all are such good students. So, this is going to be a plural version of такой. So, y'all, meaning you're talking to a bunch of people. Вы такие хорошие студенты. Or вы такие хорошие ученики. Yep, good. Очень хорошо. You are such a young hero. Okay, so young hero is this word that you've probably learned. It translates into English as good job, but it literally means like a youngin, like a kind of a young hero. So молодец. You've heard that before. You probably maybe never realized it was from the word молодой. So how would you say that to somebody? Like you're talking to a little kid who just did something all by themselves. You would say, ты такой молодец. Ты такой молодец. Good. How about this one? You are such a beauty. Beauty in Russian is красота or краса. So how would you say? Or let's do this one. Красавица. Красавица. That's a better one. Красавица, which is feminine. So we'd say ты такая красавица. Ты такая красавица. And if we're talking to a boy, the masculine version of this would be красавчик. Красавчик. So what would we do to the word such a to make it masculine? Ты такой красавчик. Ты такой красавчик. Вот, очень хорошо. Okay, so наш интересный кусочек информации дня это these words вот так. They're hard to translate. If you were to go through and translate them word for word, you would be left scratching your head. They don't really make a lot of sense. But вот and так and all of that, they're very important in Russian. So here's one, a little meme that they're saying, такое вот хреновое лето у нас. Okay, so хреновое is like it's a softer version of a certain swear word. But what are they saying here? Такое вот хреновое лето, right? So that's the kind of what, and вот is another like filler word they kind of throw in there all the time. And again, it just doesn't translate. You just kind of get a feel for it of where it goes. It would be almost kind of like the Canadians, how they're saying a, or in Minnesota, throwing in a there all the time. So it's kind of like a throw-in word. So that's the awesome kind of summer we're having, or, making a joke like that. Over here, let's look at this one. It says, вот так вот не надо. Вот так вот не надо. Вот так вот. Right? If you were to translate that, that just doesn't make any sense literally in English. Вот так вот. So like, that's kind of how you're saying just like that, like that, like that, like what you're doing. Вот так вот не надо. And this phrase is amazing. Не надо. It literally means you don't need to, but it's also like another way of saying don't do that. Вот так вот не надо. So she's like, don't do it like that. And then she comes over here and she says, надо вот так. So how would you translate that one? Надо вот так. You got to do it like that. You got to do it like that. And then she says, понятно. You understood that? You got that? Okay, here's another meme. Ну, Маша, ты даешь. Okay, this is like, ты даешь literally means you give, which means absolutely nothing to our English brain, but it means wow. Like, wow. Ты даешь. Ну, ты даешь. Ну, Маша, ты даешь. And then he says, вот это да. So that's another funny one to translate, is вот это да. And this is a great expression, especially since today we're talking about the word это. Вот это да, like, wow, yeah, that's awesome. That's the way to do it. That's how you do it. Yep, that's awesome. Oh yeah, that's for sure. Like, вот это да, вот это да. Yeah, so somebody says something and you're like, totally, вот это да, вот это да. So that's our интересный кусочек информации. Those little filler words that you can really take for granted that like are used constantly in speech. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to our учебник. Okay, so let's make sense of this word это. And it gets very confusing because it can kind of mean a couple of different things, and you got to really keep track of it in your head. Okay, so it can mean you're just presenting something. This is. It could also mean these are. It can mean it was. It can mean they were. It's just it's kind of an all-purpose is, was, were, these are, etc. So in order to make that work, it needs to be это plus, so if in English there is an is or a was or a were or an are, then we just do это. It doesn't change. Это, right? So let's look at some of these sentences. For example, это мой брат. This is my brother. This is my brother. Right down here. Это мои друзья. So even though this one is these are, it still works. We've got an are, we've got an is, we've got a were. This still works. Это мои друзья. Okay? Now, the second you want to turn it into a demonstrative. Imagine that you're demonstrating something. You're showing somebody this house, this dog. So if we go this, no is, no were, no was, if we go straight from this into a noun, person, place, or thing, that's when we need to change it for gender. Okay? So let's look at some sentences that do that. Этот брат живет в России. Oh, I see what's happening there. I'm not saying this is my brother. I'm saying this brother. This, straight into a noun, brother, lives in Russia. Okay? Notice there's no is, there is no was. So we have to make это match the gender of the thing we're demonstrating. Behold this brother. And the other brother lives somewhere else, but this brother lives in Russia. Okay, how about this one? We come down here, we're presenting some people at a party. We say, эти друзья русские. Эти друзья русские. Okay, so I'm not saying these are my Russian friends. Imagine I'm at a party. I've got some Brazilian friends, I've got some Russian friends, and I'm pointing, I'm demonstrating, and these friends over here are my Russian friends. Эти друзья русские. Эти друзья русские. Эти друзья бразильцы, right? So you're demonstrating эти, and эти is the plural of это. So if we look at our chart right here, we have этот for masculines, этот дом, этот университет, этот город, etc. Это, which this one's tricky because you can't hear that there's an a on the end of it in spoken speech. That could very well be an o as far as we know. There's no difference in spoken speech, but in our minds, when we're visualizing it, we're seeing that there's an a on the end. Very typical feminine ending. Then we come down here. Это слово. And guys, this is where it gets confusing because as you notice, it's exactly the same as the this is we were talking about. So your neuters are going to be exactly the same as the this is. And then we have our plural, эти машины. Okay, so let's look at some of these sentences. We've got это мой брат. Как будет по-английски? This is my brother. Okay, let's try this one. Этот брат живет в России. This brother lives in Russia. Okay, how about this one? Это мои друзья. These are my friends, right? These are. We have an is, we have an are, we have a was. That's when we just get это. We don't change it for gender, okay? But now I'm like, oh, I have so many friends from all over the world. These friends are Russians. Эти друзья русские. Эти друзья русские. Так. Next one. Мне нравится это место. I like this place. And место is neuter. And so it doesn't really change from the other version, okay? And then how about this one? You're clarifying. Somebody left their purse laying around and you say, это сумка твоя или это? So there's two purses and you said, это сумка твоя или это? Right? So, and again, for those of you only listening, you can't see that there's an a on the end of this это, but there is because the sumka is feminine. Okay, and then here's a great important phrase to know. Что это? Что это? What is this? And sure enough, we see an is, we see an are, we see a were, and it's right next to the this. That's when we know we need our just generic, non-changing это. Okay? So now, keep this all in mind, and let's practice down here on the worksheet. Okay. Who is this? So we just did что это, so we're just going to switch out the word что for the word who, which is по-русски будет кто это? Интересно, кто это? Это ваши друзья? Да, это мои друзья. Вот. Okay. Do you like this kind of music? Okay. So we could go in two directions here because you guys are getting so fancy and smart. You can say things in two different ways. You can either use yesterday's magical word такой, or you can use this music, right? And just change out the make этот feminine. So let's try it. We can say тебе нравится такая музыка? Or maybe you're not even asking this kind of music, but you're asking like this music that's playing right now. Then you could also say это, right? And there's an a on the end, not an o. Okay? Do you like this city? Oh, look how there's no is. It's this straight into a noun. No is, no are, no were. So that is going to need some sort of gender of этот. Okay, so city is город, which is masculine. So we're going to say тебе нравится. And then this city, город, is masculine. So we're going to have to say этот город. Тебе нравится этот город? Да, этот город мне нравится, но другой город там в Канзасе нет, не нравится. Вот. Okay. This apartment is. I see this straight into a noun, which means we need to change it up. We need to change it. This apartment is so, remember yesterday's lesson? Big. So let's do it. Это квартира is feminine, so we need to put an a on the end of our это. Это квартира. What's our word for so? We got to change it, make it feminine. Такая большая. Вот, эта квартира такая большая, обалдеть. Ну ты даешь. Вот это да. Just seeing if you're paying attention. Okay, now we have one. What a big window. I'm testing you here. We don't have a this. This is going back to a previous lesson. What was that way of making an exclamation point? Right? So it's a word that can either mean which, or it can be an exclamation point with the correct intonation. So let's see if you can remember. First, let's do this phrase, окно. So окно is neuter. And then we want большое. Какое большое окно? Большое. And then we put this magical all-purpose word. Какое. Какое большое окно. Sorry for the messy handwriting there. Okay. Are these? Now the word order is switched, but I still see it. Are, is, were, was. I see it in the vicinity of a this and a these and a that. They're connected to each other. There's nothing in between them, which tells me we get what? So we want to say, are these your children? Are these your children? I don't care that this is plural. I don't care that this is a these. I don't care that this is an are. This is strictly, we see a is form of a verb and this or a these or a that. So we're going to say это, non-changing это. Это ваши дети? Это ваши дети? Да, это мои дети. Right? So now, imagine you answered this. Imagine whoever these little kids were just these little stinkers and everything. And you're like, no, my children are nice. Those children are not nice. So let's first try with my children. This is going back to our possessives. Мои. Нет, нет, это не мои дети. Нет, мои дети добрые, воспитанные. Мои дети добрые. These children, I don't see an is, are, was. It's going straight into a noun. So that tells us we need to change our это. We need to change our это. Children is plural. So we're going to go эти дети недобрые. Эти дети недобрые. А мои дети добрые. Но вот эти дети нет. Хамы все. Хулиганы. Вот. Okay, очень хорошо. Вот, теперь. Okay, so now I want to practice developing your instinct as far as like, I'm going to say a sentence to you. And you're going to fill in the blank with, do we get a changing это? Or do we just get generic is, are, were, это? That doesn't change regardless of, because again, we need to go straight into a noun if we're going to change it. Okay, хорошо. So first sentence, we have что, ... Okay, so essentially we're asking, what is it? I hear an is. I hear an is. Что это? Non-changing это. Okay, next we're asking, do you like this apartment? This apartment. Straight from this into a noun. There's no is, there's no are, there's no was. So we're going to say, тебе нравится эта квартира? Тебе нравится эта квартира? And again, we can't hear in spoken speech that that's an as opposed to an o. It just kind of blends together. Next one. Где? What do you think? It seems like we're asking, where is it? So we would say, где это? Где это? Вот так. Где это? Yeah, where is it? Where is that? Etc. How about this one? Oh, you're stopping somebody on the street. You're looking for a particular restaurant. And you say, you wouldn't happen to know, where is this restaurant? Okay, so we went straight from this into restaurant, which tells us we need a changing это. And ресторан is masculine, so it would be, вы не знаете, где этот ресторан? Вы не знаете, где этот ресторан? Okay, next. We're going to say, I love these shoes. These, there's no is, there's no was, there's no were. We're going straight from these into shoes. Okay, so we're getting a changing этот. So far we have этот, masculine, эта, feminine, это, neuter, and эти, plural. So, я люблю эти туфли. Okay? Next, you're just introducing somebody to your wife. And you're just saying, this is my wife. How would you do it? I'm going to stop giving hints now. Это моя жена. Okay? Next one. I don't know this. I badly know this place. Место is neuter. And we're going straight from the... Oh, I said I wasn't going to give any hints. Okay. Я плохо знаю это место. Я плохо знаю это место. Okay? Next one, we want to say, "Ay, this is a very difficult language. This is a very difficult language. Это очень трудный язык. Это очень трудный язык. This is. Next one. But, obviously, this next one is true because you're sticking with me. But I love this difficult language. Okay? So I love this difficult language. What do you think? Я люблю этот трудный язык. Because язык is masculine. Okay? Я люблю этот трудный язык. And y'all, let's get this foundation really solid because later on when you start learning cases, all of these этот, эти, they're going to start getting cases as well. Okay, so we really got to understand this concept of это. And it'll actually make almost more sense when you start putting it into cases. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to read you off some sentences and you're going to think, am I getting a changing это here or a non-changing, just generic это? Okay, so we don't live in this city. Okay, so even though you don't know prepositional case yet, listen to this sentence. Listen to the word this and listen to what's surrounding it. Is there any is, are, were, was, etc.? So, and you're just going to tell me changing это or non-changing это. We don't live in this city. This city. Changing это because this city, there's no is. Okay, how about this one? It was interesting. Are we going straight into a noun? So that is non-changing. That one's non-changing. Это было интересно. Это было интересно. We are not going straight into a noun from our it or that. Okay? I love this Russian song. Changing это or non-changing это? This is a changing это. Я люблю эту русскую песню. Я люблю эту русскую песню. Okay. Oh, this one's fancy. And it's going to be fancy grammar, but you still should be able to know, do I need a changing это or not? This is the Russian song I told you about. Y'all, I see a this plus an is right next to each other. So it's a non-changing это. That's all there is to it. Это русская песня, о которой я тебе говорила. Вот. Это русская песня, and then fancy grammar here, о которой я тебе говорила. Вот. How about this next one? This is my favorite Russian author. What do you think? Changing это or non-changing это? Are we going straight into a noun? If we go straight into a noun, we get changes. Нет. So we're getting non-changing это. This is my favorite Russian author. Это мой самый любимый русский автор. Okay? These students have difficult classes. These students. Okay? So we went straight from these into a noun, which means it's changing это. У этих студентов трудные занятия. У этих студентов трудные занятия. See how these are getting cases, and that's why I'm trying to show you we really got to figure out how это works in the language. Okay, I don't know who that was. Ooh, tricky. I don't know who that was. What do you think? It's a non-changing это because remember I said that plus any form of is. Is, was, were, are. That's going to be a non-changing это. То есть я не знаю, кто это было. Все. Это все на сегодня. And look, there's a non-changing это right here at the end of our lesson, sure enough. Это все на сегодня. That's all for today. I wish you luck. This is going to take some practice, and in some ways, это will become more clear as we start putting it into cases. So, хорошо, это все на сегодня. Увидимся на следующем уроке. Пока-пока.